Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Alexia Roski if you're new here, and if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. So before I start this video, I wanted to run something by you guys. I wanted to come up with a sort of catchphrase to use on this channel. So it would be part of my opening for every single video. And I was thinking that I would say, welcome back, warriors, because the word warrior really resonates with me. I actually have a Facebook group that's called We Are Warriors, and it is a community full of like-minded people. And when I say like-minded people, it's interesting because everybody has mental health. I think some people hear the term mental health and they just assume that it's negative. Like when they hear mental health, they think mental illness, which is not true. Mental health is like physical health. You have physical health. You can be physically healthy, or you could be physically not so healthy. You could have healthy days, you could have not healthy days. And so it is very similar when it comes to mental health. You can be mentally healthy, you can be not mentally healthy. So everybody here has mental health. Everybody. So the reason why I want to call you guys warriors is because every day we have a battle between ourselves and our own minds. That's crazy. And that's really tough. It is no easy feat. I know I've battled with my mind and my thoughts for years, and it's tough. It is really tough. But it will give you such a thick skin when you realize that you have the power to turn negative thoughts into positive ones. You have the power. You have the power to decide whether or not you're going to seek help if you need it. You have the power to decide whether or not you're going to use coping skills that help you, that make you mentally healthy. You have the power. You have that armor that a warrior wears in battle. You have that shield that protects yourself. It is all in your hands to determine whether or not you're going to choose to live a mentally healthy lifestyle. And that is more difficult for some people. Some people genetically are predisposed for having specific mental illnesses. I know depression runs in my family, bipolar runs in my family. So already I was genetically predisposed to have or to potentially have depression and bipolar. Now, there were specific things that triggered both of these, but I was just one of those people who happened to be born with that. And it was just, it's a part of me. So if you like that term and want to be referred to as being a warrior whenever you watch my videos, please hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please hit subscribe. And even if you don't want to be called a warrior, I get it. That's fine. You don't have to be called a warrior, but comment below what maybe a better catchphrase would be if you have a better one in mind. Really, I'm just like fooling around with everything YouTube related, trying to get, just trying to figure out everything. So, alright, so the video today, as you can see by the title, is going to be about anxiety versus anxiety disorders. And then we're going to be talking about what you guys think anxiety is like, what anxiety feels like for you. So yes, most of this channel is going to be me sharing my own experiences and my own story, but I do want to include you guys because I think it's really important that we make this a community. So I did post a question on my Instagram and Facebook asking what anxiety looks like for you. First, though, I want to start off by talking about the difference between normal anxiety and an anxiety disorder. So, normal anxiety is a part of human nature. We all experience it. We can experience it in a positive light or a negative light. A more positive light would be the anxiety and anticipation leading up to a family vacation, or you haven't seen your friends in a while, so you're super excited, but also a little anxious to see them. That is the more positive anxiety. But then you can also have more typical, the negative anxiety, which is just like the worry about a test that's upcoming, something like that. So normal anxiety is usually in regards to a specific event or situation in your life. It is very specific, and it typically only lasts for the duration of that event. And once that event has passed, the anxiety passes as well. So with anxiety, you get your body's natural response to it. And the reason why your body responds to it is because it is protecting you against any potential threat or danger. But there is such a thing as too much anxiety. Too much anxiety is when it becomes an anxiety disorder. There are different types of anxiety disorders. I have generalized anxiety disorder. I know a lot of people who live with social anxiety. I actually experienced social anxiety a lot in my past. Sometimes I'll experience it, with people who maybe I haven't seen in a long time, and I'll start overthinking conversation, that type of thing. But yeah, social anxiety, or it can be anxiety to something like heights, or an irrational fear, just any irrational fear. So there are different types of anxiety disorders, but an anxiety disorder is very different than normal anxiety. Normal anxiety is typically very rational. It makes sense. It is, like I said, it's in our human nature. We fear things that should be feared. And in turn, those fears can actually motivate us. So, like in regards to a test, the fear motivates us to study really hard because we don't want to fail this test. So, an anxiety disorder is when this anxiety becomes so extreme that it is difficult for you to function properly. It is usually in regards to nothing in particular, or in regards to a certain event, but after that event has passed, you're still anxious about it, or you still feel that anxiety, and you can't really pinpoint in like what it's in regard to because the event already passed. I know for me, on really anxious days, it's really frustrating because I can't even figure out what I'm so worried about, but I feel my heart pounding. I feel sweaty. I feel the thoughts racing, but I just can't put a finger to what exactly it is that I'm worried about. So for me, I would describe anxiety as feeling trapped in your own body, feeling suffocated, feeling hopeless, feeling like I will not amount to anything, that my future is completely in shambles when I don't even know that's true. So I can definitely name so many things that I would probably describe my own anxiety with, but I want to talk about you guys. I posted the question, what is anxiety like to you on my Instagram and Facebook, and I would like to talk about some of the responses I got. The responses were fantastic. I really appreciated everybody that wrote in because I just think it's great to engage with my audience. And yeah, so we're going to talk about them. So I jotted them down on my computer. Okay. So this first one is, it feels like a tightness in my throat, struggling slightly to breathe. I just had to take a breath for that one. So I personally, and this is me interpreting the response this way, when I think of that, I think of my struggle with breathing. I have a breathing issue. It's not asthma, but I think it's linked to my anxiety, and I always know when I'm extra anxious, like generally, not in regards to something in particular, but I can always tell that I'm extra anxious because it'll be really difficult for me to get a proper breath. It'll be more shallow breathing, and so it's almost like I'll breathe, but it won't let me breathe all the way and properly get oxygen to my lungs. So sometimes it can feel like I'm almost getting weighted down, and yeah, it's not a good feeling, but I've been living with it for a while, so I'm kind of used to it. But sometimes I'll be talking and I'll go to take a really big breath, and whoever I'm talking to is like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm okay, don't worry, I'm good." But it makes me aware of it, and I'm like, "Oh man, yeah, it's still an issue." Yeah, so for me, I totally get that. That response is spot on with extreme anxiety. It feels like you're getting smushed by a massive boulder, and it's almost like you're smushing yourself, because most of the time I think our anxiety is just us overthinking. Okay, so this next response is just the word unknown. This speaks volumes. I think taking one word and trying to sum up anxiety is really interesting, but I feel like the word unknown really does a good job of that. So when I think anxiety, I think fear of the unknown. And I think it's more extreme anxiety when this happens because, like I mentioned in the beginning, normal anxiety is typically in regard to a very specific event. But when I think of anxiety in the world of mental illness, I think of anxiety disorders. And when I hear unknown, I immediately think of anxiety. So for me, anxiety is debilitating when I feel completely hopeless about my future because it feels so unknown to me and so foreign, and that's what the future is. Like it's just, that's how it is. If we knew what the future held, it wouldn't be the future. So unknown is pretty accurate when we're describing anxiety. This next one is, anxiety is like a war. You're constantly in battle and don't know the outcome. Wow. Yes. See, some of these, like, even though I read them yesterday, I'm rereading them, and each time I read them, I'm just kind of blown away, because I think when we learn to talk about specific deep topics like anxiety with other people, we realize how not alone we are, because these responses that I got sent in do such a good job of summing up how I feel about my own anxiety. They actually make me look at my anxiety differently, and I don't know, it's just, I hate that other people have to feel this way, but it's almost reassuring to know that I'm not alone. And If you're listening to this or you're watching this and you hear some of these responses or the way that I speak about it and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, you are not alone. You are not alone. There are so many people who live with debilitating anxiety, and also everybody has anxiety. That is not to downplay an anxiety disorder, but I do want you to know that everybody lives with anxiety. We all cope with anxiety different ways. Anxiety disorders are more complicated than everyday anxiety, but we're all human, so we all live with anxiety. But back to this, it's like a war. You're constantly in battle and don't know the outcome. So I mentioned earlier, we are in constant battle with our own thoughts. And that makes things really complicated. Because when you're in constant battle with your own thoughts, they are everywhere you go. There is no escaping them. No escaping them. And that's a bit terrifying when you think about it that way. But it also puts the power in your hands because you are in war against yourself. That's what it comes down to. And you know your weaknesses, but you also know your strengths. So when you look at this battle, don't look at it as something that you could lose. Think of it as something that you are winning every single day you choose to wake up and get out of bed and tackle the day, day after day. You may not know the outcome of this battle, and that is because you do not know what the future holds. Nobody does. If we did, like I said, it would not be the future. So it does make it difficult because this battle that we are constantly in, we don't know how it's going to turn out. But we need to figure out how to be hopeful. We need to figure out our own weaknesses, and we need to acknowledge our strengths. Each one of us is so unique. This means that each one of us has our own weaknesses and each one of us has our own strengths. Fast pulse and busy thoughts. This is another response that I want to share with you. When it comes to anxiety, we have physical and emotional responses. Some of them are conscious, some of them are subconscious. Some subconscious ones are an increased heart rate, sweaty palms, maybe some stomach issues, some tensed muscles, maybe a clenched jaw. There are so many physical results of anxiety, and really it is just because your mind and your body are preparing itself for the fight, flight, or freeze reaction or response to a situation. So these are normal things. The response to any sort of anxiety, most of the time you will feel it as well, and that's why we can be motivated to attack that specific anxiety, or we can be intimidated by it. There are so many different emotional responses that we can get to anxiety. And then the racing thoughts is something that occurs in everyday anxiety, but then there's also a different degree of racing thoughts when it comes to an anxiety disorder. In regards to just normal anxiety and racing thoughts, I think it's typically racing thoughts in regards to a specific situation, and this can help us because, like I said, it can help us motivate. And what keeps popping up into my head is just the anxiety before a test and how these racing thoughts can help us study harder, to study longer, to study more efficiently. They can really motivate us, but then there is when these racing thoughts start to consume us and completely hinder our ability to do daily functions or to just function properly. This is when the anxiety turns into an anxiety disorder. And for me, in regards to racing thoughts, I have difficulty sleeping sometimes. Sometimes when I'm in conversation with someone else, it can be really difficult for me to concentrate on what we're talking about because I may have the racing thoughts about every other thing that's going on in my life. And that can actually lead to social anxiety, which is something I have experienced a lot of in the past. And I also know a lot of people who are living with social anxiety as well. It's a lot more common than you would think. Oh my goodness, you guys. So as I'm editing this video and all the separate clips that I did, I realized that I didn't have an outro. I didn't have an ending. So I don't want to be that person who just leaves it hanging like I did for most of my other videos. I'm growing. So I wanted to put this clip in and just thank you guys for watching if you made it this whole way. And I really appreciate all the support that I'm getting from you guys. It's motivating, honestly. It was pretty disheartening in the beginning, like I mentioned in another video, just seeing that I only got like 1 view, and it's made me so ecstatic to see that I'm actually getting views now. So thank you guys for watching, and hopefully you learned something during this video.